Hi, my name is Major Carrie Egbert. I'm currently serving as an Air Operations Officer at 2 Operational Support Squadron in Bagotville, Quebec. Today I'm here to talk to you about my experience as an Air Task Force Commander on OpVector in northern Manitoba. In a situation when it's time compressed and short on resources, so like it was with the COVID vaccination distribution, it was really important to get to the most vulnerable populations first. Due to the isolation, including distance from medical centers, crowded living conditions, and pre-existing conditions such as tuberculosis, it was assessed that the First Nations communities would be very susceptible to COVID outbreaks. In fact, some of the communities that we worked with on Operation Vector had also been supported during Operation Laser with CAF's support to assisting communities in time of outbreak and lockdown. So the CAF was involved in the distribution plan for the COVID-19 vaccine from early on. We have a big logistical machine behind us, and we also have the ability, like in the case of the northern communities, to use specialized equipment that allows us to deal with the climate and the terrain, especially during the time of the year when the vaccine distribution was beginning. It was March and the ice roads were beginning to thaw, so those communities were primarily accessible only by air. One of the additional challenges within the northern communities was that the medical staff is very limited. Each community has its own nursing station, which can provide critical care or transfer with a medevac or something like that, but they didn't have the capacity to vaccinate an entire community. During Operation Vector, the CAF provided assistance in several ways. One was to provide planners into the Integrated Vaccination Operations Center. We also worked with the tripartite partnership, which included Manitoba First Nations, the First Nations and Inuit Health Board from Indigenous Services Canada, and the Manitoba government to set up COVID-19 vaccination centers. We also provided 2 different vaccination teams to augment the civilian medical teams. And then, of course, we also had a really great partnership with the City of Thompson and the Thompson Airport, who supported the operation throughout by hosting us and making sure that we had the resources that we required. I led a team of up to 65 personnel consisting of pilots, technicians, operations, and support staff who enabled the flights into 11 different First Nations communities. We used Chinook helicopters and Twin Otters to move medical teams, both civilian and military, as well as support staff for the vaccination centers. The Chinook helicopter, it can move about 30 personnel at a time, as well as their kit and some additional equipment. We also use the Twin Otter aircraft. It's a short takeoff and landing aircraft that's really truly designed for northern climate and terrain. It's really flexible for moving smaller groups of people or for getting into places that just didn't have a big enough landing zone that could accommodate the downdraft from the Chinook. There was also at least one community that expressed a bit of hesitation with the Chinook going in there. Just when you don't see military very often, seeing a big green military aircraft coming in was a little bit intimidating. And so we used the Twin Otter in that case, just because we really wanted to work with what the community needs were. And with the Twin Otter being painted search and rescue yellow, it was just a little bit easier to accept. The CAF personnel who arrived in the communities before the vaccination teams, they worked with local nursing stations and community liaisons, elders, radio stations to get the word out about the benefits of the vaccination program. It was really well known that the increased communication led to a better uptake in the vaccine. The teams that were going into the communities, they always came back with really interesting stories. And I remember they were having to think outside the box from time to time. Like they would set up the vaccination center in a central location, and there was homes that were not walking distance to the vaccination center. We sent mechanics into communities because there was families that had a vehicle, but for whatever reason were inoperable. So if the repair was pretty simple to do, we would send a mechanic out, they would fix the vehicle, and then the family would be able to come into town and get their vaccination. And I just thought that was really neat, like to be able to provide that sort of level of service, under the auspice of an emergency response. So this operation was really about Canadians helping Canadians. And being able to take an active role in the pandemic recovery was really rewarding for myself and my team members. OpVector was really the proving ground for a hub and spoke concept of operations, allowing us to set up in one base with support personnel and whatnot, and then push aircraft out to the communities as required. And it worked very well on OpVector. It's actually being used on the international stage right now. The hub is set up in Prestwick, Scotland. We're sending CC-117 Globemasters and CC-150 Polaris from Canada into Prestwick. And then it's primarily the CC-130 Hercules that is pushing out to other locations, and they're supporting 3 different operations: Op Impact in the Middle East, Op Reassurance in Europe, and Op Presence in Africa. Canadians should remember that the CAF is there to support them in times of disaster and emergency, regardless of its nature. I really encourage Canadians to have their emergency kit with their basic items needed for survival for the first 72 hours. It just buys you time and a sense of security. Listen to the radio and other local news sources for instructions.